Hello. Hi guys. Thank you for joining the live stream. I hope the audio is coming fine, right? Yeah, everything seems to be fine. Am I visible here? Okay. For some reason I can't see myself on the screen. Am I visible? Okay. Anyway, let me know if I'm visible or not, or is it just the audio coming, which shouldn't happen really. Yeah. So, today we are going to discuss this appearance by Roland G. Fryer, who came on Patrick Bet-David's podcast just yesterday. This is one of the best podcasts in the world currently. Patrick Bet-David, for those of you who don't know, is a very big entrepreneur. He sold his insurance business for close to $300-400 million. Now all he does is this podcast. It's a very well-organized podcast. It's a proper podcast. But he has written 2 books himself. Those the books you see behind him. Very respected podcast host, author, business conference speaker, motivational speaker, all sorts of things. He has visited India as well to give these speeches in IIT Bombay, I think, as far as I remember. So anyway, he's a pro-market, pro-free market, libertarian, religious as well, but mostly on the side of liberty, freedom, etc., those kinds of things. Now, he invited this guest. He's a Harvard economics professor. He's a PhD from University of Pennsylvania and was I think, pass out from Harvard as well. Here, incidentally, they get into one debate at the end, near the end, about reservation, which is what they call affirmative action. There, actually, I side with Patrick Bet-David, not with this professor, who in fact is a liberal or left-leaning liberal, but a proper liberal. He thinks there are problems with the current way reservation is going on, but we can tweak it. I'm of the opinion that no, there should not be any reservations. But from the beginning of the podcast, there are very interesting things that get discussed. First of all, at one point he says he's very disappointed with social scientists and the lies and politics of academia. These are some of the things he discusses. Then he also discusses that how he researched and basically stumbled upon the fact he was not a right winger, right? So he believed that white people are always out to get black people, police atrocities are happening on black people all the time. When he's trying to do a proper research on it, when he runs across the data, then he sees, oh my God, there is actually no racial bias, which has been a common lie peddled by the Western academia as well. The liberal arts academia is known to peddle lies in every country, but here he peddles. In the USA they peddle this lie. Now, why we are listening to this as Indians? Because what happens to him after that? How they come after him? How he gets pressurized by the academia? Those are the things we know about in India as well, and that's what we'll listen to. And then another interesting discussion they digress into, which is CIA may or may not has been probably behind the popularity of hip-hop, okay, and a legendary rapper called Ice Cube, who is probably should be considered one of the top 4 hip-hop musicians or artists of all time. He, in a recent interview to Bill Maher, another famous political analyst, political commentator, etc. in USA, on his podcast, Ice Cube said that all the people who own the record labels, who promote the musicians and artists, they are the same people who own the private prisons of USA, because America has private prisons, so there is an inherent implicit incentive structure in the system, and incentive structure for the owners of these prisons itself to thrust more and more people into the prisons, because that's how they make their profits, and they are basically cheap manual labor as well. It's an insane system, the prison system of America. But therefore, CIA might have actually promoted some hip-hop voices to probably do bad things to the black culture in general, not to the black neighborhoods in specific, but to black culture in general, African American culture in general, and also if they can arrest some people and fill up the prisons as an economic incentive, that's an even better thing. Like Dr. Thomas Sowell, who is my favorite economist, a black person himself, he forever says that when he was growing up, there was no hip-hop all around, but when there was actual literal racism in the laws, black people were actually more prosperous, their families were more intact, divorce rates were not shooting out of the roof, and the black neighborhoods were actually very safe. The absolutely infamous black neighborhoods of today were absolutely safe places to be. Thomas Sowell writes repeatedly that he used to sleep on the rooftops because it was so hot and he did not have AC, etc. Milton Friedman, his basically guru. Milton Friedman used to go for dancing in some jazz clubs and bars with his wife in the middle of the night. Okay. You can't go to those places anymore. They are no-go zones basically for any non-black person first and foremost. But even if you are black, you are probably going to get shot by a stray bullet from here and there. If any of you have relatives in Philadelphia, ask them what happens there in Philadelphia, Chicago, and some places of New York, etc. Okay, now let's start listening to this insane discussion.
A podcast I've been looking forward to doing for a long time, Dr. Roland Fryer. For some of you guys that don't know who he is, you may have seen a clip that recently went viral. And when you hear about his background, maybe one of the most interesting stories we have in the entire country today. So his background, I mean, I heard him say he's 45 years old and the only living member in his family that's left that he's in contact with. Just a very interesting life. You know, going from, a former gangster, tough life, gets into Harvard, becomes, I believe, the youngest. After his postdoc, he gets his PhD from economics in Penn State University in 2002. Then Fryer's rise at Harvard was meteoric. Following a postdoctoral stint at University of Chicago, he joined the Harvard faculty by 2007 at the age of 30. Achieved tenure, becoming the second youngest professor ever to do so at Harvard and the youngest African-American to earn that distinction. His research focused on racial and ethnic disparities in economics, particularly in an area like education and police interactions. And he recently, I don't think this is recently, I think it's 2016 when he did it. He'll correct me because, you have to see what this study was about. So he goes to school, he's at Harvard. He decides to do a study about, systemic racism, about the link with police brutality towards blacks than others. And then the results are surprising, and you'll hear what happened here with that. We'll get into it. But with that being said, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes, this is probably not the typical podcast you get on. You're more used to, Barry Weiss, more, economics, more university professors. But
So did you guys note his research background, his credentials in academia? Those are absolutely top notch. It's top of the line academic credentials. Even then, see what happens to him. And no wonder people like Mysterious Sociologist and Madam Political Scientist, they have to come with anonymous profiles on my podcast.
You'll see why we've been looking forward to having this podcast with you. Rob, can you start off with the clip? I want you to watch this first. So this is him and Barry Weiss. And now you'll recognize after this who we have on the podcast today. Go ahead.
And it was in this moment, 2016, that I realized people lose their minds when they don't like the result. So what my paper showed, you'll see tomorrow, like some of you, was that, yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People tend to like that result. But we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. The little-known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year. When I found this surprising result,
he had 8 full-time research assistants for this research. And then he stumbles upon this opposite fact.
See it. The little-known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year. When I found this surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure. They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And then I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose. It was a 104-page, dense, academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix, okay? It was posted for 4 minutes when I got my first email. This is full of shit. Doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast? That's amazing. You are a genius. And I had colleagues take me to the side and say, don't publish this.
Within 4 minutes of publishing a 104-page paper with 150 pages of just index, he gets a mail that don't post this.
You'll ruin your career. I said, what are you talking about? I said, what's wrong with it? Do you believe the first part? Yes. Do you believe the second part? Well, the issue is they just don't fit together. We like the first one, but you should publish the second one another time. I said, let me ask this. If the second part about the police shootings, this is a literal conversation. I said to them, if the second part showed bias, do you think I should publish it then? And they say, yeah, then it would make sense. And I said, I guarantee you I'll publish it. We'll see what happens. So it was, you know, I lived under police protection for about 30 or 40 days. I had a 7-day-old daughter at the time. I remember going and shopping for, because, you know, when you have a newborn, you think you have enough diapers, you don't. So I was going to the grocery store to get diapers with an armed guard. It was crazy. It was.
By the way, first time I saw this reaction, you know, to this, it takes a lot of courage and bravery and brass to do this. Keep in mind, 2009, I think.
Yeah, of course, his bravery and courage is something he can show because he was at that stature. But people like Mr. Sociologist and Madam Political Scientist, the stature they are in, their rest of their careers will be screwed. And besides, in India, we don't really have that sort of an avenue where they can pursue anything other for their profession. If they have to quit academia, like even Jordan Peterson had to quit academia, was asked to do or take re-education. Jordan Peterson needs re-education. This guy gets a mail. He has many records of being the first black person to do this, first black person to do that, etc. In Harvard, he's a professor of economics in Harvard, as credentialed as it gets. Even they are not safe. Can you believe the kind of out-group seeking that's going on in liberal arts academia? I'm saying, try to fathom the magnitude of the problem. Okay, a black professor of economics in Harvard is not safe from the commie academia. He's not even a Republican. He goes on debating affirmative action, in favor of affirmative action, but with tweaks. Even he is not safe. Imagine what's going to happen to someone like Mr. Sociologist or Madam Political Scientist in India.
You're one of the top 100 Time magazine. And at the time, if you're 45 today, you're what, 30 at that time, 30 years old to be on Time. I mean, that's a prestigious place to be. When you were reporting this, how much did you think about this could potentially affect my career?
Not at all. I think I was just naive, man. You call it brave, maybe I was just dumb. But I didn't think about it at all, honestly. And I have an attitude that if you tell me I can't do something, I'll show you that I can. And so when people said, oh, you can't publish this, it wasn't coming from a place where they cared about me or cared about the people in the neighborhoods who I've been working for since I got to Harvard. And so my basic view was, look, the people in the street know the truth, and we can't keep lying to them, right? Like, I mean, I said the same, different time in that clip you showed. I say all the time, like, the conversations we're having in academia don't hit the ground in the neighborhoods that I care the most about, right? Like, if you go to my old neighborhood and we talk.
Listen to this line, guys. This is so relevant, isn't it, for the Indian context? The conversations that we are having in academia don't hit the ground in real life.
About Louisville before the show. You go to Louisville and call someone BIPOC, they'll punch you in your face, right?
I forgot what's the full form of BIPOC. BIPOC is, I guess, bisexual person of color, right? Let me just check because that's a fun thing to debunk. BIPOC. Okay, no, sorry. BIPOC means black, indigenous, and people of color. So it's a sort of a coalition like LGBTQ. It's a sort of a new group identity to identify with, okay? Let's resume.
Like, that's not, they don't.
He's saying if you go on the streets of Louisiana and call them BIPOC, they'll laugh at your face. They'll slap you.
They don't care about those kinds of things. And so I've always had the view that if this was your family, you'd tell them the truth, even if it was a hard thing to say. And you'd find a way to say it with empathy and with love, but you wouldn't lie.
This is all I'm saying in case of India's reservation situation as well, that it's my family, but I need to tell them the truth, that reservation is not helping you. And I'll say this with empathy, but it is the truth.
And so the idea that you would hide results because you are afraid of what people would say or how they would feel or how it would affect your career, it's just never been about me. It's about the folks in the neighborhoods we're trying to help.
What are you seeking? Because, you know, sometimes everybody's seeking something else. Like for me, you know, I have a certain life that I've lived and I'm trying to get to the bottom of a certain truth for myself that to maybe tie a certain issue in the past, conflicts that I was trying to overcome. What answer are you trying to get to the bottom of for yourself?
I'm going to put every ounce of effort I have in trying to make sure that kids, black or brown, don't have to endure what I did to get here.
Yeah, there is that is one of the ways he shoots himself in the foot for trying to solve for problems which don't exist. If there is not a legal problem to solve, it's hard to solve anyway.
I'm trying to make the journey worth it, right? So if you had come to me at age, 15, it's one of the loneliest days of my entire life. I walked out of the Denton County Correctional Facility. I just visited my father in there.
So his father was in prison. He visited his father in jail.
And I remember that conversation because he was bragging about how comfy the slippers were that they gave people in jail. I thought, that's like the dumbest shit I've ever heard. I walked out of there and I looked up, and I'll never forget, it was one of these beautiful blue Texas skies. And I've never felt more alone in my life. I was 15 years old. Where was I going to go? There was no one else. I didn't even know who my mother was at that time. My grandmother was here in Florida. And if you'd come to me at that time and you'd said,
his father is in jail, he doesn't know who his mother is. So how did these things happen? First and foremost, this did not happen because of white supremacy. Okay, this happened because of white liberalism. As if someone doesn't know even now, I'm going to remind them once again. This happened because of the Great Society program by Lyndon B. Johnson, where getting divorced and being a single mother, being poor, not having a salary more than a particular amount was basically incentivized. Because if you did all those things, if you were a single mother, if you did not have a salary over a particular amount, you would get free money from the government, which is how it got incentivized that, okay, let's do this. Anyway, people in a marriage might have some lust or like some distractions in every marriage. Okay, it was incentivized in USA because of white liberal soft bigotry of low expectations, which is why I'm absolutely against Lokhir Bhandar, no matter how poor you are, which is why I'm going to be absolutely against BJP increasing the Lokhir Bhandar. But anyway, this is how incentive structures work. After that, the divorce rates of black people skyrocketed. Before that, when there were actually laws against black people doing this and that, that's when black people were more prosperous, getting into finishing school in higher rates, and their families were not breaking up.
Said, look, I know things seem pretty impossible now, but these experiences are going to make you impervious to the BS when it comes to race in America, and you are going to be able to analyze data and maybe make some progress for the next generation of kids. I'd like to think that I would have taken on that challenge. But if you'd come to me during that day and said, if you can get through this, we can have Chardonnay at 10:30 at Harvard University and hang out. We can talk about Plato. I would have said, no, thanks, man. Could you just get my dad out of jail? And so for me, it's you're right. I mean, when I first got to Harvard, I felt guilty. I had to figure out, I got to do something, right? And I feel like the clock is running out. So I'm in a big hurry to make a big difference.
Were you, in Armenian, there's a phrase that I couldn't stand they would say to us, because of where we were at. Mechka, like, oh, poor.
For those of you who don't know, Patrick B. David is a Iranian Christian whose family had to run from the Islamic persecution of Christians.
Poor Patrick, poor Bet Davids, and I couldn't stand that phrase. When you went to Harvard, did they treat you like, hey, you came from here and poor you, let us treat you this, or were you treated like anybody else and, the standards and expectation to perform? And if yes or no.
What M. Shastri is pointing out here. And yes, that's exactly how even their family structures, social institutions were damaged. Similar things have happened with indigenous people, many other places. Alcoholism rampant in the Native American reservations, which is sort of an autonomous law and country that they run in different pockets of USA. All of USA's laws don't really apply there. So all of this has happened because of basically liberalism and the soft bigotry of low expectations, that the sympathy instead of empathy. Okay. More importantly, this obesity is also an interesting thing. You'll notice that if you look for the most obese countries, okay, where are the most obese people by per capita, etc., it will always be island nations like Hawaii, etc., okay, Oceania, Polynesian countries, etc., and even Eskimos. These were people whose bodies, whose anatomy had basically gotten used to not getting any food at all. So when they are incentivized to just eat all day or eat the absolutely bad, poisonous, high calorie food that we eat these days, every time, most of the times, that screws their body twice harder. Okay, that makes them twice as fat because their body has calorie retaining capacities inherently in their anatomy because of thousands of years of living in places where there was no food. Okay, now that they are getting so much fast food, therefore they are always obese.
No, did it do anything to you?
It's interesting. I don't know if anyone said poor me, but I do believe they looked at me different. I felt like they looked at me like I was an exception. Someone had beat the odds. Someone who was curious. The New York Times did a profile of my life in 2006 or so. And I remember, colleagues coming up to me and go, "Man, you sure you want all that in the newspaper?" Because they talked about my family, dealing drugs and blah, blah, blah. That I wasn't trying to hide anything at that point. But the idea that I was an exception used to really piss me off, because this is not about helping a few of us beat the odds, right? That's insulting. This is about unfettered competition so we can change the odds, right? This is about figuring out how we give people real opportunities so that they can do for themselves, right? I don't need you to pluck a few of us and pat us on the back. What we need to do is figure out how do we find hidden talent wherever it lies across the globe.
It's interesting. So let's go back to the study. And, you've shared a little bit about your background for, some folks who don't know. The study that you did, this specific study in 2016 that, we played a clip for earlier. When you're going through this process with this study, were you yourself expecting those numbers? Or were you yourself surprised as hell when you saw it? And then how did that change your perception and opinion of things?
No one was more surprised than me, right? I'm not proud of it, but I don't really like the police that much, right? If I'm going to the airport after this, if they pull me over, I'm gonna be nervous, man. I think a lot of us would be. So I figured this was gonna be the easiest thing in the world, right? People were out protesting and stuff like that after Michael Brown. But, flying to St. Louis and locking arms was just not my thing. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, it's just not my thing. So I thought, here's what I'll do to help. I will figure out empirically what's really going on because we'd only seen a few videos at that point. And I remember going to a colleague of mine and saying, here, I'm going to study the police, and here's an idea. And what
M. Shastri, what M. Shastri is saying here is very important, that liberals and environmentalists misinformed a gullible public by screaming that seal hunting was commercial and exploitative, whereas it was always subsistence. The Eskimo people are cruel hunters, as cruel hunters making a quick buck. I think based on the things I've now found out about all left-wing movements and the seeming sudden propagation and the heightened volume of their voices and seeming cooperation with big businesses, which always comes out later on. I think these sorts of things as well. Seal hunting, I think, was banned, was possible. Their voices getting louder, I think, was possible because of bigger businesses who wanted to distract the crowds or wanted to deflect the accusations of the environmentalists and the animal rights activists away from the bigger problems. Because hunting is always sustainable, okay? Unless you are one crazy race who eats everything around you. Most indigenous cultures did not do that. Some indigenous cultures did screw their lands. Some overgrazed and made their places desert. There's the story of Easter Island, etc. But most people, it doesn't. In most places, it doesn't happen that way. They are a part of that ecosystem, so they know how much to kill and eat, etc. So even today, the people in USA who hunt, etc., they don't hunt some specific kinds of deers in some specific ages because they know the way to really sustain and make the forest survive. Like many environmental laws were passed at the demands of hunters because they wanted the land, the forests, the lakes to survive. Okay, you see so many forests in USA. All that was done because of Teddy Roosevelt, who was a hunter. Okay, he liked to hunt bears. That's why teddy bear concept came about. Okay, because his name was Teddy. Okay, so his name was Teddy Roosevelt. Right before his resignation, or he was going out of power, he passed into law all those forest lands being protected under law. You can never do any construction in those forest areas. So I think The real problem is mass fishing absolutely destroying the oceans that as it is going on right now. And who are doing those things? Those things are not done by random one Eskimo here, one Native American there. They are done by the biggest businesses, right? So I think the fact that environmentalists were successful in stopping Eskimos from hunting seals, but have not been able to do anything about even big dairy industry, except just boycotting, or the mass fishing, etc., absolutely destroying oceans, and they have not been able to stand up to the biggest fishing industries. I think it shows that the fishing industries might have deflected them purposely, probably. Maybe without the knowledge of the activists themselves, heightened and loudened their voices, in some ways. And as a result, let the environmentalists and the animal rights activists be happy for some time because they won a victory against Eskimos and seal hunting. I think that might have been the case. No, hunting is never bad. Hunting is the best way for an animal to die. If you don't hunt it, and Bakri Eid is not hunting, okay. Hunting is when an animal is born and born in a natural setting, lives in a natural setting, lives a healthy, happy, free life all his life from the moment of his birth to the moment of his death. If instead of hunting, that animal meets a natural death, what is the natural death like for that animal? It's either freezing in cold, you are too old to hunt, everyone else in your herd kicks you out of the herd, or they throw you in front of the other wild animals who eat you, who start eating your legs and your hind legs and your face while you are alive, or you die of thirst. That's way better. That's way worse than getting one bullet in your throat.
What he quickly told me was, you don't understand anything about the police. So how are you going to figure out what's going on with race and police?
Yes, bullfighting should be banned. None of what you are saying is hunting. Hunting is hunting. Everything else you are mentioning is other things.
Policing in America. So I embedded myself in police departments, and we can talk about that if you want at some point. But I was extremely surprised. I was sure that there was going to be bias in police shootings. As the clip said, when I got the results back, I hired new research assistants to do it over again, just to make sure. But once you have the results, once you have what you think is the truth, given your data, there's no other choice but to go out with it and try to educate people on what the data actually says.
And what is the data? If you can just actually give us the data.
Now the data, guys. Now the big...
What we found was that on lower level uses of force, so when it comes to pushing someone up against a car, pulling a gun, putting handcuffs on them but not arresting them, things like that, there were large racial differences in police use of force. So black...
So as far as low level violence goes, that, hey, चल भुसरी के, बोल के ऐसे गाड़ी में धक्का वक्का दे दिया, उन चीज़ों में black people are more prone to face those things 50% higher than white people because of the impression in society that black people have these days. That probably a drug dealer, probably will shoot me, probably hates me. And we will connect that with the hip-hop conversation later on. But now let's get to the actual thing that liberal arts academia accuses the American police of. Okay, the actual deaths. Hear the statistics in that context.
Civilians are 50% more likely to have force used on them in any given interaction. Even when the police say they're perfectly compliant and they're not arrested and there's no contraband, etc., they're still more than 20% more likely than white civilians to have force used on them. But when it came to lethal use of force, shootings, we found absolutely no racial bias in that in any way, shape, or form. And our data, I believe, is a lot better than what has been discussed in the popular press, because they're looking at kind of statistical snapshots. They're saying, well, the fraction of black people who are shot by the police is 50%, and they're only 13% of the population, ergo it must be discrimination. Sorry, I don't know if they forgot Statistics 101. That's not how it works. Right? What we did was say, look, here.
What he said is it's like one of the quotes of Dr. Thomas Sowell, that statisticians often forget the basic rules of statistics more often than not. Nina, yes, he was asked by Thomas Sowell, so that will be interesting, his answer near the end.
Two people are in a situation with police. Their behavior is the same. The other conditions on the ground are the same. the police decides to shoot one and not the other, is race a factor? In other words, accounting for everything else about that situation, does race predict whether or not a police officer will pull the trigger? And the answer emphatically is no. And that is the result that caused panic in a lot of people. Most people like the first result.
What did it do to you? What did it do to you? I mean, because there's certain...
Avina brings out a very good point here. That's the kind of stupidity I'm talking about in the name of culture. Yeah, that should not happen because those dumbasses don't know how to respect nature. If you kill 1,400 whales in a single day, there's going to be no 1,400 whales the next year. What are you going to hunt? Who the fuck is going to bring your culture then? That kind of stupidity I'm not endorsing, okay? And AA, he's saying, how would one know that the animal is old and unable to take care of itself? No, you can't know when the animal is... You can, of course, by the way it walks and how its hair looks. But I'm saying that there's no point killing and hunting an old animal because you can't eat its meat. The hunters, where there is a proper hunting culture, like in USA, etc., there you will go and kill an animal who is not young, who has grown up to an age where now you can... It can bear offsprings, it can sustain the land, it has lived a happy life, but it's not old as well so that you can enjoy its meat. And therefore now kill it before it becomes old and hated by everyone in their ecosystem or is eaten alive or is being freezing to death or dying of thirst, etc. Okay, and as for hunting for meat, etc., it's of course a very healthy food to eat because I have said this to many people that I turned vegan because of animal rights, but now knowing the things I know about food production and the meat industry, I would now stay vegan just for my own health. So the only reason I'm not eating meat is because there's no hunted meat around me. And since I've not eaten meat in 8 years, 7 years, 9 years, therefore if I suddenly eat meat, I'll probably feel very sick. But otherwise, hunted meat is very good for your body. Of course, not in high quantities. Nothing is good for your body in high quantities, especially depending on where you are from, what your anatomy is like, because your anatomy will always be tuned to your locality or the kinds of food your ancestors have eaten for the last 2-3 generations, what kind of food you have grown up eating, etc. But for the people who do hunt for generations, their health is absolutely better than any Indian vegetarian or especially any Indian meat eater.
You're seeking the truth.
I'm saying that you don't need to know. You just have to see that it's not a young one, nor is it an absolutely old one. How would you know that? That you can know by the way by the way it walks, by the way its hair color is.
Because that's what you keep saying with...
No, I'm not justifying eating meat. I'm justifying hunting.
Very wise, right? I'm trying to get to truth. And I love what you said, and you said it again earlier today. You said... in one of the documentaries I watched, I think it was like 26, 27 minutes, where it says, I'm not trying to beat the odds. Because one guy, what does it feel like, Roland, that you beat the odds? You're like, I'm not trying to beat the odds. I'm trying to...
Yeah, M. Shastri, what he's saying is that we have, at least in some places in India, we still have a nature where we don't even need to eat meat. We don't even need to hunt animals or slaughter animals. But the topsoil is destroyed. It's full of pesticides. Most vegetables are full of pesticides or full of colors, etc., where it's made to look fresh. Hunted meat is absolutely healthier than all of that. You are vegan. Wow, why do you promote beef eating? Do you know the definition of promotion?
Change the odds, right? But individually, we're also going through a journey. There's a difference between saying, guys, look what I found. You will not believe this report. Look at what I found. But what am I going through? Yeah. What are you going through with the life that you live?
At that time, I was not aware of what was going to come. So when we had the results, we pursued 2 tracks. One, you obviously publish it, and we published it on a top economics journal. Great. 7 people read it. Maybe 6. The second path is we wanted a more popular version of the article, so the New York Times wrote about it. And for me personally, when people respond, people send me an email and say, hey, your paper is crap, or hey, your paper is great, I do all I can to return every single one of those. And so for me, I sat for days and returned thousands and thousands of emails from regular old Americans in Kansas and in Idaho and in Chicago who said, I don't know if I believe this or not, but thank goodness there's actually data and we can actually have a debate about it. And we went back and forth. And that's kind of what I do for a living, right? I'm a professor. I'm supposed to be teaching, not just in the classroom. But if you release a paper like this is what you do. So what happened to me? I got a chance to teach. And if you remember that time, I didn't do any other press. This wasn't about me out there thumping my chest trying to be on whatever news channel saying, hey, look what I found. We put it out there, and then I, over email and other means, tried to communicate directly with people about what the results were about.
But what I'm asking is, what did it do to you? So because life, okay, I grew up in Iran, and I see 10,000 men marching, flagellating their backs, screaming, "Mad bad Omri," called "Death upon America." America must be an evil empire. Then I watch Rocky IV, and Rocky and Drago are fighting. Drago, and then Rocky, and if you can change, he can change. Anybody can change. I'm like, man, maybe we can bring Soviet Union and us and unify and realize we have a lot in common, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, but that's a movie, that's fake. This is real. America must be evil. Then you go to Germany, live at a refugee camp. Parents get a divorce. Mom says, because that entire family were communists, their Bible was Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. Rich people are greedy. Dad, on the other side, is an imperialist. They believe poor people are lazy. And then I get into the military, I get into sales. And then I see the person that bitches the most, work the least, the guy. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? And it changed my opinion about economy, about work, about politics, about capitalism, about who to vote for, about who not to vote for, about who's manipulating, about who wanted to use me, about who wanted to keep me poor, about who wanted to kind of make sure I didn't figure out the secrets to life, that I can go out there and figure myself out, about how they use fear to control, to keep your mouth shut, all of these things that I'm going through as a kid, right? And I'm like in my 20s, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. What did you go through one-on-one, not anybody else? Did it change anything away from what you witnessed in your life to go back and say, man, I remember Bobby back in high school. Unfortunately, they sold him. He bought it. He's dead now. He was smarter than me in math. If he knew what I knew, he could have been. That sucks. So it was really the social economic. It wasn't a skin color, but he was convinced it was a skin color. Why do we buy? Did you go through that evolution yourself?
Of course. On a couple dimensions. One.
Yes, of course. What the hell are you going to eat in the Arctic? Nothing even grows there. So there's a famous vocalist of the legendary metal band from France called Gojira. He turned vegan, had to quit being vegan because he was touring around in Europe all the time. There's nothing to eat in Europe if you're vegan. And AA. I never have promoted beef eating, okay? When we were discussing someone else's beef eating of many seemingly political Hindus who are not into Hindu diets, etc., I was talking about how to debate with them or what to tell them, okay, because they have nice arguments. You are not clear on whether to make it just on ahimsa, animal cruelty, health, etc. So even if you tell them it's all about health and ahimsa, etc., even then they are going to say, but I like the taste. I don't care about my health. I'll die of heart attack at 42. Tumko kya hai? Okay, then what are you going to say? Then you are going to say, no, the cow has all our Hindu gods. He's atheist. Then what are you going to say? So come up with better arguments. And I'm not therefore defending beef eating. I'm only understanding why they are eating beef.
I was disappointed in social scientists. I didn't realize there was so much politics in academia until that point. I really thought that we were out there, all of us, searching for the truth. I mean, we sit in these seminars and we beat the crap out of each other's ideas and papers, and it's all about trying to get to a place of what's correct and what's not.
Guys, this is a phenomenal section. Did you all hear what he just said?
In yourself.
Of course. On a couple dimensions. One.
Power cut. Nice.
I was disappointed
in
social scientists.
It will end anytime. Let's see if the power comes back.
I didn't realize there was so much.
He said, disappointed with social science, okay? And my power is gone. I'm on inverter. It will go off any moment. Let's see how long it remains.
A couple dimensions. One. I was disappointed in social scientists. I didn't realize there was so much politics in academia until that point. I really thought that we were out there, all of us, searching for the truth. I mean, we sit in these seminars and we beat the crap out of each other's ideas and papers, and it's all about trying to get to a place of what's correct and what's not. And to see people who I respected for years lose their way because there was a result they didn't like, it was very shocking to me.
See how relevant this is in terms of even Indian liberal arts or leftist academia. That if you don't like the results, your research will be in the dustbin. It does not matter how good the research is. It does not matter if it talks of facts. It does not matter if there are facts, statistics, academic rigor, nothing. Conclusion अच्छा नहीं लगा तो गया. That's how hollow the academia is today.
That's the question, Roland.
Yeah.
So you do this research, you have a fact check, double check, and the truth is there. Why do you think that truth is such a threat to your colleagues, to the powers that be, going up the ladder to Harvard, to just the powers that be? It's such a threat. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think the results themselves were a threat to them. I think they wanted to be on the right side of a particular issue. I never thought of people as sheep until that moment.
Oh, wow.
You know, it's crazy you say that. My entire life, growing up, I don't have a 4-year, I don't have a 2-year, I don't even have an associate's. I had a 1.8 GPA in high school. I was a math guy. I love calculus, love math analysis. I can do math all day long. Had no interest for anything else. Trouble teenage, kids got divorced, all this stuff. So my route was, I'm going to go to the Army. He went to the Air Force. He was the airman of the year in the Air Force. So we're military. Tom's dad was a rocket scientist, literally was a rocket scientist. I'm not saying this as a... So Tom went, he became a professor, adjunct professor at Pepperdine, at Biola. He's probably had $2 billion of exits and raising money, so he goes to Silicon Valley. So when Steve Jobs and Bill Gates do that interview, that 300 people worldwide are invited to be there, he's one of them.
No. If you are vegetarian and you eat and you consume dairy, you are no better than a meat eater. Dairy industry is absolutely more cruel than any animal industry because you are torturing that animal for milk all its life, unless you have a cow tied up cutely at your home and unless you grow your own vegetables in your garden. You are always killing animals anyway. What do you think pesticides do? What is it called? Pesticide. Does it mean that it cuddles and says, wow, good pest, kitna cute pest hai? What do you do for farming? You kill rodents all the time.
That's Tom. Tom's background is that. So Tom is academia, more coming from this side. But a part of it, I remember when I went to Harvard and for their OPM program, Owner President Management Program, you have to do $10 million a year to be able to go there. And I qualified. So I'm like, Tom's like, Pat, just go. I'm like, Tom, we're running a company. He's like, Pat, I'm telling you, go.
Oh, my power is back. See, AA, I know I'm sounding very loud and aggressive, but I don't mean it that way. I've had these conversations many times, so I'm absolutely having a conversation with you as a very friendly viewer. So, with that disclaimer, what you are telling to M. Shastri is very unfair because if Hindus, non-Hindus, commies of India had not screwed our economy to the ground, if Nehru's and all even the Hindu socialists, all the Hindu socialists even today who hate capitalism, if they did not run our economy to the ground, people like M. Shastri would not have to go to Canada or to the Arctic for a job or for education, okay? We screwed our country. That's why these people had to leave. So don't blame them.
We got the company. I hired Tom to be the president of our company at the time. So I go for 3 weeks. Now, let me tell you what time it is when I go there. I go during the debate between Hillary Clinton and Trump.
Oh, wow.
And I go to this chow hall. I thought chow hall, military.
Yeah,
but this is a different chow hall. It's CHAO. It's an Asian man that gave $100 million to Harvard.
Chow.
It's named after him. Mr.
Wow.
Chow.
That's
okay,
funny.
chow hall.
Yeah.
So I go to chow hall. There's 300 people.
Guys, listen to this story. This is a phenomenal, very interesting story about herd mentality, group thinking inside liberal arts academia. But even in academic campuses, even if the person is not liberal, okay, listen to this story. He's talking about the night when Donald Trump is debating Hillary Clinton, and there are both supporters of both people in the crowd. But he notices that when Trump is saying something cool, everyone is booing him. When Hillary is saying something cool, all the people are cheering, but the Trump supporters are keeping quiet. That is the interesting part.
From Harvard, watching this debate.
Yes. I agree there, AA, that you are saying one should try to reduce Jeev Hatya as much as possible. Everything in Manusmriti even says as much as possible for you. It's your own honesty which is at stake. So as much as possible के दायरे पे dairy भी आता है India में. At least as much as possible. Quit dairy as much as you want. But remember at least be aware that dairy is the most cruel industry in the world. Okay, in terms of animal industries. And as for his, if you don't want people NRIs to go outside India, immediately propose that Thomas will be made the finance minister in India.
And I'm thinking, Jelly with Vinny,
Okay,
smile. Seriously, do it fast. You're doing it slow so we can hear it. So I'm at this chow hall place, and I'm hearing these guys. And I sit in the sideline, say nothing. And it's the line, because you'd be in jail, right?
Oh, man.
Aren't we glad that a man...
For those of you who don't know, this was Donald Trump's famous reply to Hillary. Hillary said that if this happened, that happened, I would do this. And Donald Trump just replied, you would be in jail if I was president.
like this isn't in the White House making the decisions and having control of whatever she says, because you'd be in jail, right? And boo! I'm like, it has to be 50-50. Now, like, I want to see 300 people in the room. It's got to be 60-40. I'm like, Trump just said something. The Trump people should root for him. Nothing. So this kept going for the 2-hour debate. Not 300 people are in chow hall. Not one person got up. The OPM program is a 3-year program. I'm supposed to go every year for 3 weeks. I go to my main person. I said, are you guys do you believe in debate? Of course we do. Is this a place where you guys entertain opposing ideas? Of course we do. Can I ask why 100%? So what do you think about Trump? He says, oh, he would be a terrible president. I said, why is it 100% of you all agree that Trump's a bad person? Why is that? I thought you guys were about debate. I said, I can't come back to the school. Never went back. I couldn't go back.
Why can't you even applaud for a live Donald Trump interview on the giant screen? Because I can't come back to the college campus next day. This is exactly like JNU, JU, Hyderabad University. Okay, some interesting comments here. Nina is saying, Dada, apparently Bangla Vaishnavas eat fish without onion and garlic. Your views? Yeah, there are some religious explanation for that. Even the Anukul Thakur sect, which claimed to be a minority institution a few days back and was thrown out of the court. They also, what are they called? I forgot what are they called. They also don't eat onions, etc. I don't know the health reasons for it, but I know the spiritual reasons for it, that it's basically that idea of a sattvic diet. So of course I think your profession matters here. If you are in a sattvic profession, it's best that you eat sattvic diets so that your brain is not stimulated all the time from everything, colors, Instagram, food, different tastes. You will be at the end of your decision-making powers. You will have a decision fatigue when you are sitting down to do the actual research. So if you're in an academic field or an academic rigor kind of a field, IAS kind of like boarding academic jobs, where you have to handle a lot of data, statistics, etc., it's best that you don't eat highly stimulating foods. So maybe by that justification, onion and all, etc., is probably justified. But if you're eating fish, of course, it was justified back then, because you had, what the hell were you going to eat other than fish if you live beside a river? Now, of course, we have other things to eat. So I don't eat fish. I never liked fish anyway. It's so much hassle. So I haven't eaten fish in probably 20 years, but I haven't eaten meat anyway in 9 years. So I can survive as a Bengali. Okay. Mayank is saying, Acharya Prashant to bolte hi hai, bhai jitna ho sake vegan rehne ki koshish karo. Yeah.
The reason wasn't, I enjoyed debate. I want to sit down with Stephen A. Smith and I were talking 2 days ago. Let's sit down and have a great conversation together. I love it. Yesterday I had a friendly debate with the lawyer for John Barnett, who is the lawyer for the Boeing whistleblower on, hey, he committed suicide. Some of the stuff just doesn't add up. And company lost $50 billion on valuation. No, he just loved Boeing. It was nothing bad. Like, I don't know. I got some questions. I'm curious, right? Let's have the banter. But when I saw that, I said, this is not a university. They're full of shit. Now, this is my opinion. You don't have to have that position. This is my position. Why? And then COVID takes place, and then you saw how extreme they got, and they say they're against for education. And then parents asked and said, hey, I know I'm spending this kind of money for my kids to come and stay on campus. Now you don't want them to be on campus. You want them to come from home. Can we get some savings? Nope. Harvard degree is worth the whole price. You got $60 billion in endowment. So,
this is the great thing Patrick is pointing out here, that during COVID, some parents said that, okay, they are not going to use the classroom facilities, your lab, etc. They are doing the classrooms from home, but you have so many extra fees for the classroom. So why not forgive that? They said, no. Harvard degree hai bhai, pura paisa dena padega.
All of these things made me go from, you're from Harvard? Oh my God. How are you? Dr. Roland G. Fryer. You're from Oxford? You're from this? You're from that? Tell, yeah, you know what? I don't know if you guys believe in debate. That's where my mind went to, because what I witnessed on Harvard campus for those 3 weeks. I could be wrong. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the individual faculty members involved. It really does. I mean, you know, I ask myself all the time, who is Harvard? What does that even mean, right? And if you were to come to my class, for example, I teach an undergraduate class that talks about issues like how much discrimination there is in the world, whether or not What education policy should we have? What do we know empirically about the effects of slavery on current outcomes? And you have fierce debate in that class. And I think you'd be proud of what the students are doing in terms of different viewpoint diversity. If you go to other places on campus, it might be different. I don't know. So it's a big place, but it doesn't surprise me what you described.
Rob, can you pull up what I just texted you? I just literally Googled this right now, because you know how you can go and find out and say, the article came out saying what percentage of Twitter executives and employees donate to the left or the right. And then it was,
Abhay is in a poetic mood today. He's saying Harvard is coward. So Partho is saying all this fake history, global fatherless minority, etc., and divisive society with religious country music versus gangster rap that kept dollar going. No, I think dollar kept going because of the printing of the dollar. Those things happened, propping up of hip hop, etc. So country music though is not even. Country music is just for white people. Usually only white people listen to it because it's the folk music of the white villagers. Now it has some city Nagara renditions as well. But fatherless minority happened for a different reason. Soft bigotry of low expectations, sympathy over empathy, etc. White liberals trying to show how great they are. Divisive society happened because they thought this will not lead to divisive society. This will in fact lead to justice, racial justice. Okay, and then dollar went for dollar, but CIA might have propped up, or the record labels propped up hip hop, because the one mistake that USA has made in a gigantic manner is that. This is why some people who are academically aware of the term capitalism, I use the word capitalism as a euphemism for free market. But free market is not exactly capitalism if you know the subtle differences. Capitalism, the problem with capitalism, or what the main thing that America screwed up, is that everything is run on the whims or demands of the businessmen. Businessmen are good for doing business. They have to be kept under check. Which is why Chanakya has the best solution for these things. Like Vivek Ramaswamy has pointed out in his book that the term LLC or private limited, why are those terms applied? It means that you are a company who will be limited to running your company, or kuch nahi karoge. Okay, nothing else, no social engineering, etc. But now they thought it's not a problem. The problem here is thinking that any side is good or bad. That is also the problem with people whom I call the Hindutvadi socialists. They think that capitalism or Americans are bad, therefore free market is bad, big business is bad, now just trust Modi and imagine in your mind that people like Modi will forever be in power, so no matter how much the power of Modi increases, doesn't matter, no one like Mamata Banerjee is ever going to become the Prime Minister ever again in the history of India, etc. When I'm speaking in favor of free markets, I am never saying that Americans are good, businessmen are good, free market ideologues are good, Thomas Sowell is a good person. I'm never making character judgments, okay? I'm saying observe who has the incentive to do what. Okay. Now, businessmen must do most things in society except probably protection of life, liberty and property, because they have the incentive to deliver you the best service for that product, okay, or that service, okay, in the best possible way without any leakages, because they don't have any other incentive here. But if they sense an incentive from manipulating the government or running the country in general, then it's going to be a ruckus like it's going on in USA. So some people say that USA is a bad country, it has never done anything good. I will obviously disagree, because then why did so many people from India go to USA and Canada, and why did they even succeed? But where is the mistake of USA versus, you could argue, the better solution that India, Bharat always presented? When was USA's golden period? You could say it kind of in some ways started during their Revolutionary War, their independence. Their ideologies were really set in place because of people like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. But the really golden period of USA, when there was actually more or less racial justice, legal justice for everyone, because before that even black people were not legally allowed to do countless numbers of things, etc. So you could say 50s to 80s, 90s maybe. So what is this, 100 year? Even if you stretch that and say that, okay, no, there were different justifications for doing bad things to black people were prospering, they were getting educated, etc. Even if we stretch this, it does not cross 100 years. Compare that timeline to Bharat, there lies our achievement. And our achievement there has not happened because of all powers to the king, or it has not happened because we have said that capitalists are bad, business is bad. None of that, okay? So get what you can, try to learn what you can from USA, but apply it, remembering USA's mistakes as well.
It was like 99%. I'm like, what? And then, have you ever seen this chart? Or no? Rob, can you pull up that chart? Because that's public. It's not hard to kind of find. It's all over Twitter, and we have it. And then I said, okay, let me go a little bit further. This is different. This is just, let me go show to the top. Harvard Corporation members donated heavily to Democrats ahead of the 2022 midterms.
Avinab is asking an interesting question here. See, he's asking that, was country music very racist against blacks? I got to know about that from a Key and Peele sketch, but I didn't find any such music as I looked up on YouTube. So obviously, you are not going to find that music anymore. It's probably taken off all platforms, because these platforms are not going to allow any makers of such racist music to benefit from their platforms. But of course, folk music is music of the absolute poorest ground people, okay, ground level people, ground level communities, farmers, etc. So absolutely they are going to be racist when the society in general, or the ground level, the government, everyone was racist. But not all country music was ever racist, just like all blues music was not just about complaining about slavery. But since folk music does not have the facade of nicety like intelligentsia does, therefore folk music always comes out as more raw. Therefore, you'll get to the societal truth probably quicker if you listen to folk music. But the problem with folk music is that it fossilizes very quickly, because you try to conserve it as a genre of folk music, whereas folk music is supposed to be whatever the current poorest mass of a locality sings. So today, Lollipop Lagelu is the folk music of Bihar, nothing else. Similarly, that Bengali folk singer who won the Padma Shri because Badshah made his song famous, that Bodo Loker Bitilo, Lomba Lomba Chul, Emon Mathaye Bedhe Debo Lal Genda Phul. What a weird lyrics, basically. But that is how the poor people speak. You can't blame that. You can't call that stalking or misogyny. The lyrics says that I see some rich girl, daughter of a rich family, walking, and I feel like putting up a genda fool in her head, in her hair. What a weird lyrics. If actually Arijit Singh sang such a song, feminists would be up in their arms. Who is your favorite rock guitarist? I don't have a favorite guitarist based on any genre. Overall, my favorite guitarist is Guthrie Govan. And Stevie Ray, I forgot to answer you last day. Stevie Ray Vaughan is not my favorite guitarist, only because he's a blues guitarist mainly, and I don't like blues all that much. Same chord progression in all songs.
Look how much of it is red. You got the Pritzker family, heavy duty. You got the Wells. There's zero red. There's zero bipartisan. The only person that is
Meera Tripathi. No, that's not crony capitalism. That's crony socialism.
Paul Finnegan, and slightly red, all blue. This is pretty much 95% is all blue. So now...
No. Arthur Any Donuts is saying, in current conditions, free market is antithesis to nationalism for India. It doesn't have to be. सरकार को जो हमने इतना पावर दे के रखा है, वो क्या मेरा फोन टैप करने के लिए या फिर अंबानी को डंडे में रखने के लिए? वही मेरा क्लेम है. तुम जो बिलियनर है उसको डंडे में रखो, उसको बिलियनर भी बनने दो, उसको डंडे में भी रखो ताकि वो एंटी नेशनल कुछ कर ना पाए. That's all. Your duty as a government should be to protect life, liberty and property. End of story. It's not that complex.
Does it mean blue is right and red is wrong? Does it mean conservative policies and living a conservative life fiscally is a bad thing? Does it mean maybe if I go to Harvard, I come out, I have to be a liberal if I come out of Harvard? Because if all these smart people at these places, God forbid, if I'm a conservative at a place like that, I may get ousted. You know, and I know you have a very, very good relationship with Claudine Gay. And I know you guys are best friends.
Yeah, barbecuing, hanging out.
You know, you were having breakfast with her this morning. It was great. But so you hear a Claudine Gay and you come out and you report this win in 2016, 2017. I Googled literally right now to see your article about, New York Times, Star Economist, writes this article. And that was in 2017, okay, whatever it was, right? And then they're telling you what you're doing. The next one comes out. Star Economist at Harvard faces sexual harassment complaints.
Right. See, anytime someone goes against the mainstream ideas of the people really in power, all of a sudden, sexual harassment का केस आ गया. इस black professor के ऊपर भी.
went through your tweets. There was nothing about your tweets that was sexual. They were actually funny. You're like,
Oh, Arthur, any donors? Okay, your question is going into a more depth now. You meant free market as in an open market to foreign USD multinationals. So, actually, USD multinationals in one way has more incentive for the betterment of India. You see this recent deal that there will be 100% FDI in the Indian space industry. Because of my communist upbringing, for the first few minutes, I was really irked that, oh my God, doesn't that sound dangerous? But imagine a situation where the entire world is a stakeholder and actually benefits from India's space industry doing good. And everyone knows, all of these people, at least for now, know that it's beneficial for our investment, for our space industry, if a person like Narendra Modi is in power. So it's a two double-edged sword. But even then, even if a concern like that really comes up, that this person might do anti-national things if we let them invest billions of dollars in India, उसके लिए सरकार का डंडा है नहीं, सरकार के पास ऐसा तो है नहीं, हाँ. तो जिस दिन मतलब स्मेल भी मिला ऐसा कुछ, मारो डंडा. टेस्ला को तो वैसे भी इतने दिन से आने नहीं दे रहा है क्योंकि वो टैक्स से में राजी नहीं हो रहा इलॉन मस्क. तो आने से पहले ही इतना डंडा दिखा रहा हो, तो जब आएगा कुछ चुतिया पकड़ेगा तब डंडा दिखाओ.
maybe if I didn't spend so much time studying stuff, maybe I'd be better in sex.
Yeah.
I'd love to go to France. I actually looked at your tweets.
Text.
Your text. I'm like, yeah.
What Avinav is pointing out here, listen to this comment. It was found out that Narayan Murthy of Infosys is funding a few anti-India bias research works in the West. Then his wife Sudha Murthy got a Rajya Sabha ticket. How do you see that? In terms of, it's a very good question, because in academia, it's always going to be nuanced, okay? At best, you can probably give hints and give wink nudges to Tata, TISS, Premji, etc. that are these really good things to do? Isn't it bad? Or you ask other people whom you are actually friends with to fund research to counter these researches. Because if you completely stop them from doing research, then it's even more powers for the government. And then if Mamata Banerjee comes to power, or someone like Mamata Banerjee comes to power, you will be doing PhD researches for millions of dollars an hour or per year for writing papers on how great Sheikh Shah Jahan was as a mass leader. That's the problem.
I mean, we all probably talk like that every once in a while, right? So then they come after you. Then Claudine Gay, behind closed doors, is trying to talk. There's a Larry Bobo, I don't know who it was, trying to get you to lose your tenure. This is pre her being president. And
okay, this is a good question. Arthur Enidonuts is saying BYD and Tesla could demolish EV industry next month if allowed. What do you want? A better, cheaper Tesla car or a worse made, costlier Indian made EV car? That's a choice you'll have to make. And if you really come to that conclusion that no, I don't really want a cheaper, better car in Tesla, and because of your nationalist instincts, like boycotting meat industry, being vegan, fair enough. Go ahead. No one is forcing you to buy only Tesla. You encourage people to buy the Indian Tesla, Indian EV products.
you kind of sit there and say, dude, are we not protected? Are you guys not trying to target me? Did that thought at all cross your mind that this school doesn't like some of the positions? And Claudine Gay, maybe the average person on the left would say Claudine Gay should probably defend.
No, Hungry Beast, Mahindra and all, it may or may not be unknowingly, because these people still think that casteism is a big problem and this is the way to fight casteism. They have not read the history books by Sanjeev Sanyal, Vikram Sampath, etc. They don't know any of these things. They don't know what the conversation is on the ground. So they think they're doing an actually great thing.
You, right? If you're really about, you should be on my side, right? When you were going through that, and obviously I'm not telling the whole story, but when you were going through that, how are you processing all that experience?
It was hard to process it. And what I focused on was...
does that mean that I'm okay with Tesla decimating the Indian companies in the EV industry? No. I am therefore expecting the EV industry to step up their game. Do it even better. Do it at even cheaper prices. Or make or hire people with even more lucrative offers. Face losses in the short run. Do something to beat Tesla.
I could do better, really. Right? Like when anything happens in life, you have a choice. You can either look in the mirror or you can look out the window. And the first thing I do is look in the mirror. And you're right. It's debatable whether or not telling jokes is worth that kind of penalty. But maybe I shouldn't have told him, right? And so,
do you really believe that, though? Do you really believe that?
Yeah, the first thing I did was I went to executive coaching because I didn't understand, right? Like I know it's maybe hard for some people to think, well, you're a Harvard professor, you must know better. We talked about how I got to be a Harvard professor, and nowhere in that journey was management training. Nowhere in that journey was, hey, I am very, very casual.
Yeah, if we don't let Tesla enter today, what will happen? What did making ambassador cards get us? Kiska benefit hua?
Right. So when I think we're friends, and so I feel like we can talk about anything. If you have Thanksgiving at my house, then I feel like we can banter in any way we want.
Besides, one thing you'll forget from Chanakya's teachings is that comparative advantage. तुमको किसने बोला है कि तुमको ईवी ही बनाना है भोसड़ी का, और कुछ बिजनेस है नहीं है दुनिया में. अब टेस्ला को बीट करना ही एकमात्र उपाय रह गया है, और अब टेस्ला के अगर बिजनेस खत्म कर दिया तो मैं रास्ते में आ जाऊंगा. ऐसा तो है नहीं, तो कुछ और बनाओ ना. उसको अगर अगर वो बेटर बना सकता है टेस्ला, तो हम बेटर टेस्ला चीपर प्राइस में खरीद देंगे. मगर तो तुम टेस्ला छोड़ के, तुम ईवी छोड़ के कुछ और बनाओ, कौन रोक रहा है?
It's just the way I roll. And so it never dawned on me that, for years I had lots and lots of students in my house for Thanksgiving. And so those students I had a different type of bantering with than ones that didn't. And so I treated my, workplace for people who, I knew well.
And why do you think, Abhay, people have not listened to Rajiv Malhotra? Either because they are actually evil, which is a possibility, or they feel that they have had conversations with people with academic credentials in liberal arts, and they have asked that, what is this guy Rajiv Malhotra saying? What are his concerns? And they have explained some other things to these billionaires. And who is the billionaire going to trust? And a guy retired from the IT industry who writes books about Indian culture, or a guy with a PhD who is currently a professor in liberal arts, about liberal arts studies?
Like my living room, and I shouldn't have done that. And I don't know if it truly hurt someone. They said it, a few years later, they said it did. And if it did, my God, I'm sorry, because that's not what I had intended. So it's really not about what I believe. It's about what could be and whether or not I can actually change my behavior. So that I've done. Now, what was I thinking during that whole process? It was very, very confusing. And I had to figure out if I could actually do the work I wanted to do at a university. And more importantly, I had to figure out, because the world was treating me very differently from Monday to Tuesday during that time of my life, how I could still be on this mission to have impact. How was I going to get the work done that I needed to get done if I couldn't publish here or talk about academic papers there or have research assistants or what have you? How was I still going to make a difference? And that's what I was truly focused on.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. I think Tesla has to be manufactured here. That's the only caveat I'm saying. That is why I'm expecting that Tesla will be cheaper in India. Ambassador is license Raj problem. That's just a phrase you are using. What is the exactly problem? What was the license and what was the Raj? Exactly what we are talking about in the Tesla context as well. That Tesla will have to wait and beg for licenses.
I mean, you sound very nice.
It's not about nice, man. I want to be effective.
Yeah. No, I get that. But to me also, from the outside, do you think the approach they took to get it public and the way it was a form of trying to embarrass you a little bit? Was it a form of making an example? Because that could have been handled privately,
Yeah, it felt personal.
Okay.
It felt personal. But again,
said the next thing inspires you. Do you believe words have power?
I do.
Do you believe affirmations, daily affirmations? You give me the vibes of somebody.
Now we get into the topic of hip-hop being propagated for interesting reasons.
And daily affirmations.
Not at all.
Are you, wow, what am I saying? More murder, come again. Or, what are we talking about here, right? Now, what if you all of a sudden are inspired to do that? And you do the study, and it comes out it's true. Hip-hop used to be not gangster rap. 80s hip-hop is different than 90s hip-hop, right? And today's mumble hip-hop, and, you've seen Snoop say, mama, it's a very different rap, right?
Interesting question. Why do our billionaires fund humanities instead of STEM? Because they are already in the STEM fields. They are already doing whatever they can in the STEM fields. They are training their employees who are coming out of colleges probably knowing pretty much nothing. TCS used to say that we basically have to retrain them anyway. So as billionaires, they think now in what other field can we make some contribution. That field is therefore anything that's not STEM. And we can contribute to making a better world for poor people and the impoverished, oppressed people. So that's why they fund these things. The narrative building.
So what if you get inspired to want to investigate that? And all of a sudden you find out, dude, these guys...
Yeah, M. Shastri, Khalistanis are using hip-hop too. And that is why that was one of the main reasons I did this live stream. So perhaps there is a connection here.
Freaking try to do this to us, to put in jail so our communities would be hurt with social economics. That's dirty. Would you feel safe doing that investigation and that research today?
Well, first, I'm going to answer that directly.
Please.
It's a great question. First, if you take out the CIA angle, which I hadn't heard about.
Okay, Arthur Enidonuts is saying Marxist ecosystem has complete control over US corporations. If you Google anything bad about feminism, you will get 2-3 pages on trying to debunk the right-wing conspiracy. No. Marxist ecosystem does not have a grasp on US corporations. It's a mutual prostitution case. US corporations co-opted Marxist voices who specifically focused on cultural Marxism, race studies, gender activism, etc. Only those voices propagated them, gave them a platform, gave them a voice, so that the people who are actually pissed off with the Wall Street or the economic Marxists, so that they don't come for them. That's what we were talking about in the beginning of our discussion with the hunting, etc. So it's not really, it's not like Bill Gates is or Jeff Bezos is listening to some random commie professor in Harvard. No. They benefit from each other. The economics professor goes around the world getting $1 million for his speaking fees, and goes to say that only black people and the Dalits of India are equal. America is the most evil racist culture society in the history of mankind, etc. And conversely, they don't go to Wall Street bankers and Wall Street, let's say big corporations, and get to tell them that why are you bribing this politician for this particular gain? Why do you want illegal immigrants? Why are you promoting studies against gun laws? Okay, you can't go around telling them those things because someone else from your group, from your Marxist club, got funded to say other things. Now your voice is insignificant.
I'm doing exactly that study right now.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, so we'll get to that.
Sick.
Great.
So I'm fascinated with the impact of not just hip-hop generally on inequality, but the specific words and language, because I do believe that words matter. And AI has now come out and allowed us to do this in a much more serious way and scalable way. We can talk about that later. Would I feel safe? No, but I've never felt safe, and I'm not going to.
But you got to buy brie cheese.
You got to get brie cheese. You better get on
Dude,
it.
you got to be careful with that cheese. It's expensive.
You know, I'm stocking it up.
Why are you investigating this, though? Link with hip-hop and...
It's the biggest cultural revolution that I've seen in my lifetime, and we have no idea what the impacts of it are on economic mobility, inequality.
Let me tell you something that Thomas Sowell's research basically discovered. He was also building up on other people's research. That you see the African American way of speaking English, which basically sounds wrong grammatically, which is actually grammatically wrong, but no one tells them anything because their ancestors were oppressed. So let's say sentences like, I didn't see nothing, or this ain't gonna happen. That's actually correct English. Anyway, the stuff like that. And even writing as if you are pronouncing it wrong. Gone. I'm gonna do this. Okay, so not going to, not G-O-N-N-A, just G-O-N. Okay. Those things were not actually African American culture. Everything that hip hop did, whether it was their bad English, their lyrics about women, money, etc., the general society they described, the general society they spoke of highly as an aspirational model, which basically decimated the minds of black Americans, black kids, especially people in low-income neighborhoods who only listen to that kind of music because it's probably someone from the neighborhood making that music, like the Trinamool Gunda aspirational model in West Bengal. So, all of those people were basically mollycoddled and babied by, again, white liberals. They said, this is genuine distinct African American culture and we need to protect it, propagate it, promote it, give it a platform, voice, everything. That is how the black hip hop with absolutely evil lyrics came to be popular. Interestingly, they did not get their language or their way of looking at the world from their slave ancestors. They got that language from the lower income white people who actually owned their ancestors as slaves. Okay. And not lower income, they had to be pretty rich. But those reasons, when they got impoverished because of slavery, they had to move elsewhere, those white people. And after that, they stopped speaking in that language. Even their daily lifestyle, their daily culture, everything that we today associate with African Americans actually came from the slave owners themselves. But when those white people went elsewhere, when they spoke like that, when they lived their lives like that, no white liberal came and told them that it's a great thing, we are going to protect you. No. These people were the low-income white immigrants from Ireland, England, etc. Which is why the language, the wrong English spoken by black American rappers is the same wrong English that used to be spoken in low-income suburbs of England. Okay, so again you see how sympathy destroyed a culture. Black Americans who are above 80 years old, they did not grow up listening to lyrics of just pussy, butt, etc. Okay, and boobs. People like Thomas Sowell, etc. They listened to jazz, blues, and if they were even richer, they listened to classical music, etc. When they lived in white neighborhoods. Only then. All of a sudden, black hip-hop lyrics came to be the thing that white liberals decided that now we need to protect. Whereas that entire culture was an offshoot of white suburbs of England.
Teen pregnancy, all sorts of other social factors. So I would ask you the question, how can I not?
Yep.
Listen, I admire that you're doing it because respect to you. Because again, Rob, what was the first gangster rap song? What was the first one?
Oh man,
what's the first gangster rap song? Like the first one?
Like a popular one?
I don't care if it's okay. So Ice-T had been emceeing since the early '80s, but he first turned to gangster rap themes after being introduced to Schoolie D's self-titled debut album, and especially the song PSK. What Does It Mean, which is regarded to the first gangster rap song Schoolie D had, Am I Black Enough for You, in the album of 1989. So that's the first one, right? Rob, can you go to the lyrics of F the Police? Can you go to...
So they're comparing historical analysis of rap now. The first rap song versus a famous song called F the Police. You know what F means here. That was one of the most legendary songs. It was from the debut album of the rapper I was talking about in the beginning, Ice Cube. Now we'll get to what Ice Cube himself says about the prison industry and the record label industry. That's why he's bringing this up. Listen to this now.
let me see this here. If we go to lyrics, and let's see if there's, okay, right now with NW full of picture. Something like that. Police straight from the underground.
Abhay, here actually you are 10% wrong. Blacks were integrating, but this specific victimhood narrative created fissures. Yes, I guess you are not saying that the blacks created the victimhood narrative. They were integrating anyway. Yes, if you are saying that, then you are 100% correct. The victimhood narrative was 100% created by white liberals. It was their fault.
Young got a bad because I'm down and brown and not the other color since police. So police think they have the authority to kill a minority. Because I am the one for a punk mother with a badge and a gun to be beaten on, thrown in jail. We can go toe to toe in the middle of a cell. So this, when you read this, obviously it was a hit. I mean,
well, the beat was great.
First of all, I listened to it.
My mom would sing this. My mom was like, she'd hear a siren, she'd be like, the police. I'm like, Mom.
So I tell you, I'm 14 years old. You should ask this question to my dad.
Okay.
I said, Dad, can you stop by Warehouse? My parents are divorced. I see him every other week. I'm like, buy me a tape, 99 cents. You go to Warehouse, you pick something up. He says, which one? I said, it's just this new jazz song that came out by this guy named Eazy-E. It's a jazz song. So, yeah, it's called Real Mother. You know, it's like, well, you know. How,
yeah, of course.
So he says, oh, okay, let's go. We go buy it. And we get in the car. I'm like, freaking awesome.
Oh,
this is great. You know, this is finally I can play something while I'm working out when I'm going to YMCA. And he says, you know, I want to hear this jazz song. So you don't want to hear it. It's not your type. So
Gabriel?
Gabriel, you should ask him.
I'm going to.
He's listening to it. When I put it in, and he says, yeah, no. We went back for 99 cents. This guy returned it back to Warehouse. He says, you're not going to listen to that. I said, well, I listened to it anyways. But back in the days, it was a different story. So I admire you for wanting to pursue this, to see, you know, what kind of, do you believe, without even doing the research, that it did have major impact in the community?
Yeah, but probably different than you imagine.
You think so?
Wow.
My hypothesis is that
this is a phenomenal hypothesis, and it makes very much a lot of sense. Listen to this.
It had different effects.
The question is, how exactly do you think hip-hop affected different people?
Yeah, but probably different than you imagine.
You think so?
Wow.
My hypothesis is that it had different effects depending upon where you were living. I don't know if this is true or not. Now, and I'm on record saying I was completely wrong about the police. But my view is, for inner city for people who live in the inner cities, it's going to have very little effect.
Inner city meaning the low income black neighborhoods where there is already crime and all. He's saying their hip hop might not have any significant effect because hip hop was basically talking about those neighborhoods anyway. So it's not like hip hop made them extra prone to criminality. But it may have affected other people living elsewhere in the country, white, black, minorities everywhere in USA, because all of a sudden now it was a mainstream and aspirational model. So the thing that could have been contained only in black neighborhoods and a way could have come out of that, meaning if someone comes out of that neighborhood or at least has the hope someday that after all these are evil, this is a bad way to lead your life, why not move away from this? But nationwide, hip hop becomes the aspirational model, and that's what he's talking about. That happens probably because of CIA or prison industry or white liberals.
I think it's already, this type of language is already out there. People are already having these discussions. That's where the songs come from. Now the question is, for the kid in the suburb, who those discussions we're not having, right? So imagine you move your kids out to the suburb, right? And then you're trying to get away from some of these things. And then now they can just tune in on radio and get the same and log in and tap into that type of identity. That might be dangerous. So that's my hypothesis, is that yes, it's going to have big effects, but not where you imagine.
And music, I mean, if you think about it, music is so powerful. We always talked about it, especially with like putting a trance on people. Like if you listen to gangster rap, be honest, you feel like that. When you listen to jazz, your mood changes, you're happy. Like, and easy, like you said, you take somebody out of the hood and now they're in the suburbs and stuff, and then they hear the police. When they get pulled over, what do you think their attitude's going to be?
Do you have a clip of what Ice Cube said about this? He didn't say, do you have the other clip with the CIA guy or no?
Well, I don't have the clip, but his name is John Homestead. He's a retired CIA agent. And he admitted it.
Rob.
Okay, let's take.
Now, this is the one of the main important topics of today. Listen to what this legendary rapper Ice Cube is saying to Bill Maher about possible alliance between prison owners and record labels who promoted these black artists, hip hop artists.
About this, he didn't say, do you have the other clip with the CIA guy or no?
Well, I don't have the clip, but his name is John Homestead. He's a retired CIA agent. And he admitted
it. Rob.
Okay, let's take rap music. Let's take it. Same people who own the labels own the prisons. So
wow.
Literally the same people? Literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons. So, you know, it seems really kind of suspicious, if you want to say that word, that, you know, the records that come out are really geared to push people towards that prison industry.
But they didn't make you write those lyrics.
It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't.
Wow.
Certain flavors are exposed on the record. You know, some records are made by committee. Meaning record company guys sit around and tell the artists, this is hot, say that, do this. We're gonna have this guy write the lyrics. We're gonna have that. So the narrative is really kind of, you know, structured and really made into what the record company want the record to be. And what you know, a lot of artists are.
You should make a song called "Hug the Police" just to flip it around.
Love the police.
Hug the police.
You remember that one reverend?
That better have a real good beat.
Sick
But
beat.
by the way, if there's anybody that is qualified to speak on that, it's Ice Cube.
1000%.
Is there anybody bigger than him? I mean,
No.
right now we came up with the first, you know, Ice Cube's name is linked to it, so he has the moral authority to talk about that. Tom, you were talking about a man earlier.
How did Biggie own private prisons? He had that much money, or was he some percentage of stakeholder in some prison? Ice Cube literally said those who make bullets are also making band-aids, which explains a lot about the situation. Absolutely. And this is a classic sort of Abrahamic problem, that you create the problem, sell the solution.
George, I think it's Wackenhut or whatever his name was. Can you unpack the story you were telling us before?
Yeah, so there's a bit of a rabbit hole here, but
We love those, Tom.
But no, it's real. So George Wackenhut, pioneered privatized prisons, where rather than governments building prisons, it's like, hey, you need a prison. How about we build it?
This is where USA screwed up big time. Capitalism screwed up big time. This guy pioneered private prisons. What a great incentive structure to have. I make money if more people go to jail. There's no problem with that at all.
For you. And it'll be, the state of California Correctional Facility, whatever it is.
Guys, this is actually a great lesson for even commies and socialists, that see how incentive structures work. How the same way that this was a thing USA screwed up, in the same way, you don't understand how governments will screw up and screw your life as well. Okay, listen to this. When this person decides, let's have private prisons, after that, mysteriously, all of a sudden, everywhere, governments, police officers, politicians, local politicians, mayor level politicians, everyone gets an incentive to claim to be hard on crime, tough on crime. Now this person, Tom, another co-host of this podcast, gives two major examples of how because they were being lobbied. Okay, they were being lobbied by the prison owning industry now. So they are being told, चलो चलो कुछ करते हैं और लोगों को भेजते हैं जेल, कैसे भेजा जाए. For that, they, as far as I remember two major points here. Now comes the 3-strike law, which is good in theory, but has bad second order, third order consequences. That if you commit any crime 3 times, you are going for life, no matter what the crime. If you are arrested for 3 times for any crime, you will go for life imprisonment. Life imprisonment means 20-30 years. उसके ऊपर तो है pro women law, उसके ऊपर है bias judgment, उसके ऊपर है bias jury, ये सब तो है. उसके ऊपर है you can't afford a good lawyer, rich people can afford a good lawyer, richer people can afford bail, poorer people can't afford bail. All of this, on top of all of this, they made the 3-strike law. Another thing that they did was they altered the what amount of drugs you need to possess to be called a drug dealer versus someone trying to do one evening of weed or cocaine, etc.
And you just send your customers, your criminals here, we'll take care of them, and you just pay us by the person. And then we'll take it. That way you don't have to build it, because you have to get these big bonds to build schools, water infrastructure, prisons. They come up on ballots all the time. And people say, need another prison? They used to say, yes. Oh my goodness, we're going to reduce crime or build a prison. Never mind if they do the research on recidivation rates. It's a fallacy. Most prisons are crime college, and they come back out and go back in.
Right. This is where actually Norway has the best model. That returning to prison statistics is absolutely horrid in USA. I don't know the statistics in India. It's probably horrid as well. And there are different conversations to have. I'm not going to get to that exactly. But they said when they were propagating these laws, tough on crime laws, they said that this will make people not come back to prison even. Or let's have bad situations in prison so that people don't come back. But what is seen is that people... when they come out of those prisons, they are so destroyed. Their life was basically pretty bad to begin with. In prison, they see an more evil world, and they have absolutely no semblance or they can't fathom how to get back to mainstream society. Some people do. Most don't, and therefore they again get into crime in a criminal world and commit a crime again and get back to... Most of them get back to prison again. The least rates of these people going back to prison is in Norway. Norway does some things which again will irk many people who are probably victims of relatives who are relatives of the victims of those crimes. In Norway prisons, you can have guitar lessons, drum lessons. You can have a studio. You have a fridge, small fridge in your room. It's basically... Norway's idea is that we are going to show what a good, stable, legal citizen's life is supposed to be like. I will show you what the aspirational model is. Therefore, when you go out, you'll try to live that life, because most criminals have not even seen a good life. So when you go out, try to replicate what life you had in the prison. And that is actually leading Norway to have the least amounts of people who get back to prison. But the flip side is, of course, an impossible question to answer. That, okay, your relative got murdered. That person is now learning drums in jail. What a great thing now. There used to be complaints that some criminal actually wrote a letter to higher authorities that my Game Boy is out of order and I'm not getting a new video game. How the hell can you do that to me? So everywhere you need to do a monkey balancing of incentive structures. But let's say, what do we want more? Do we want more people to not return to jail, or do we want more people to go to hell once they commit a big crime?
Unfortunately. And Wackenhut was then acquired by GS4 or G4, whatever it was. And what's interesting is the privatization of American prisons was like turbocharged. And I think it's, Rob, I think it's a prison now, G4, that bought Wackenhut. And it's a major international conglomerate now. And what was interesting is they needed customers, and the private prison industry in California lobbied for the three strikes law. And the three strikes law that, here comes a rabbit hole, that Attorney General Kamala Harris in California, she greenlit and modified the weight-based possession implies distribution. You know what I'm talking about? That over.
See, Kamala Harris did this. Who knows where she was getting her campaign money from? Campaign to even run as Attorney General.
The weight-based possession implies distribution. You know what I'm talking about? That over a certain weight, like over an.
Yeah, what Abhay is saying here, that the Norway model might end up encouraging underprivileged people to commit more crimes to get a better life in jail. Absolutely possible, which is probably why no country other than Norway has really experimented with this.
Ounce of marijuana. Oh, you're intending to distribute. Right. And now they can turn what was possession for my birthday party into a felony distribution charge. And you get three strikes, and now the customers are filling the prisons. And there's a big cycle there. But there it is, G4S. And now they are a giant operator of privatized prisons. And they needed customers. And then the three strikes law, it's always good to be a politician running to be tough on crime. Yeah. And now you have this big cycle that comes around. You're nodding a little bit. Have you, looking back into, you were looking into crime statistics and have you dove into that and had thoughts on that?
I haven't at all. I'm not an expert at all on private prisons and didn't know Wackenhut until you just mentioned it. But obviously I've heard of him and the viewpoints about the issues with private prisons I'm aware of, but I didn't look into it in terms of research, no.
And the three strikes law, certainly California, had a very bad effect.
Yeah, of course.
Because you took young men that probably should have been in and out for a minor charge, and suddenly three strikes, they're in, and now they're in crime college.
Right.
And it's horrible. What was interesting to me about all this, we were talking also about music and how there are these social triggers. It'd be really interesting to see the depth of your research that comes out of that.
Tom was a big Rappin' Forte guy back in the days.
Tom was a biggie too.
In a white shirt.
Oh my God.
I didn't get
motive, Tom.
No, I didn't get bloodied up. I didn't get bloodied up.
Topic.
You walked the walk. When you said
you do my thing, and I'm enjoying my life. I have no aspiration for anything else except for being a professor and getting to the bottom of certain articles and issues that I'm interested in.
Guys,
what is that person doing?
Now the reservation debate. Okay, now we get to the crux of the matter, and let me answer. Just add on to what M. Shastri is saying here. California is a very corrupt state, and this reminds me of another example of California's corruption. It's probably not legal corruption. These are moral corruption. Otherwise, everyone would be in jail. So, Vivek Ramaswamy points this out in his research. Today, entire Californians' pension fund is invested legally in BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. So, no matter what kind of a Californian you are, no matter what are your views, your retirement money will be used to promote only the furthest left ideas, cultural Marxist ideas, which are the main course of State Street, Vanguard, BlackRock. Okay. You are a commie just because of your surroundings, or had you actually read Marx? Absolutely only because of my surroundings. That's a cool thing to do. It's an aspirational model. People fear government expansion into the market, but people not realizing it is the corporations which are expanded into the government for a fact. Yes, that's the plutocracy. Yes. And besides, in economics classrooms as well, you are taught about market failure. I'm basically quoting Sanjeev Sanyal here. Market failure, market failure, market failure. Meanwhile, we are living in a state of government failure, government failure, government failure.
And on the other side, when you roll down the street, people just stop and start scattering, right?
Exactly.
And so, it's two sides to it. And that was probably the best education I'd gotten since my grandmother taught me how to read, was going around with the police and understanding.
This is one great idea of USA Ideally Support, that since they have such a problem that one community believes the police is evil and one community does not believe the police is evil, white liberals and most black people believe the police is absolutely evil. So there, the way to counter this is they try to take some black kids from poor neighborhoods in their police cars and go around the neighborhood, see what a day in the life of a policeman is like. And he says, that's probably the most significant education I ever received after my grandmother taught me to read. Grandmother taught me to read.
there's what they see relative to what I thought was going on.
Long term, what are you solving for? Long term, like, are you aspirational? Is it, you know, hey man, just leave me alone. Let me teach. Let me write some papers. Let me do my thing. Let me be a father. Let me be a husband.
Now we'll get into affirmative action / reservation debates, and great points will come up.
And getting to the bottom of certain articles and, you know, issues that I'm interested in. What's long term? What are you solving for long term?
No, I'm bad at all those things you mentioned because of my real aspiration, which is to fundamentally change the trajectory for minorities in America. Maybe that's too aspirational, but that's it. It is. My grandmother used to say, "Why do you work so hard? You're killing yourself," you know, et cetera. And I said, when we believe that the market for talent is perfect, I'll stop. I don't take days off. I haven't had a vacation in more than a decade. I work Christmas Day because I am absolutely on a mission to ensure that everyone's got a fair shot at this thing.
What are your thoughts with affirmative action?
You know, the details matter when it comes to affirmative.
If he was talking to Thomas Sowell now, and if Thomas Sowell was not 200 years old like he is right now, he would first and foremost hold him accountable to the definition of fair. Thomas Sowell points out that most problems in political discourse, most bad policies come about because of clearly undefined words. Lack of clearly defined words. So what is his interpretation of a fair shot? How does he know there's not a fair shot? What is a fair shot? And what does your fair shot come at the cost of, or someone else's fair shot or not?
What are your thoughts with affirmative action?
You know, the details matter when it comes to affirmative action, right? So I'm sure I benefited from it, and I needed it. I was a hot mess when I showed up on a college campus, and there was more potential than my test scores would have shown because of what it took to get those test scores. Now, my daughters, if my daughters need affirmative action, it's not because they face systemic bias, it's because they suck, right? Like, we put everything into them, right? I'm sitting, this morning, getting ready to come here. My wife texted me a link to a video with my 7-year-old playing the piano. It was awful. And I thought to myself, see, every passion is explored. Club soccer, piano, horseback riding. They're bad at them all.
But you can eat brie cheese like a champ. Like a champ. Yeah.
Trust me. Okay? Trust me.
Yeah.
But we do everything we can to make sure that whatever passion they have is watered, is nurtured. And so and they go to the best schools that we can afford. And so if they get to the end of that journey and they need lower standards, that is not okay, right? Now, on the other hand, if you take a kid from the inner cities or from Iran or wherever in the world, and they have slightly lower test scores but went through the shit to get them, that person's got more talent. And if you put them in a university and free them up from those constraints of their community and maybe their neighborhood, maybe even their own parents, I believe they can flourish. So for me, it is all about finding people with the highest latent talent. And that doesn't always show up in test scores. So having this blind, like, I just take the person.
So his idea for tweaks in the current affirmative action system in USA is that go around looking for talent. How does the government find out talent without degrees? And how do you fund more bureaucrats, more government officers to spot talent? And his other criteria is even more weird, that if they have gone through hardships. So again, you are going to incentivize people showing off that they have gone through hardships. Great. It's going to lead to great things.
With the highest SAT, I think that's wrong too. On the other hand, taking people who are from affluent families with low test scores who haven't had that kind of struggle, that's also wrong. And so I think it is all about the details, and the way we're doing it now is just lazy. It's not correct.
You think long term, the current model of the educational system is going to be disrupted so bad that these physical type of locations may one day no longer be around?
That's a big idea. I don't know, because there's still a big effect from going to these places. Maybe it's less than it was 10 years ago. I don't know, but it is, particularly for minorities. And so I think that, of course, it will be disrupted. Of course it will. The question is what it will look like in 25 years. I don't know. My guess is there still will be a substantial in-person presence in the same model we see now.
Have you seen the numbers that came about that shows who AI will be affecting the most negatively?
I haven't. They put those numbers out like every day, right? Like,
yeah.
I remember it was going to be truck drivers 5 years ago. Truck drivers look safe. Maybe data scientists are not. Software engineers might not be. But show me the list. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it was actually just.
Yeah, Patrick David is going to an interesting place here. That who is really going to lose their jobs because of AI?
Who gets affected by AI the most? It's not that one. Brandon has it. If you want to have Brandon text you,
And this is for the future, Pat? Like this is what's coming down the pipe?
and by the way, this is coming from Pew Research.
Okay.
What shares of workers are most expected to AI, most exposed to AI in their jobs? Okay, zoom in a little bit more, Rob. I know it's going to be zoom in a little bit more. So men 17, women are more. Women get more degrees than men do. Whites high, blacks 15, Hispanic lowest, Asians the highest. They're going to be affected by it the most. Less than a high school diploma, they're not going to be affected.
Because they're working in cars and stuff.
High school grad, 12%. Some college, 19. Look at bachelor's plus. 20. So the people that are going to college are going to have the biggest risk to AI than those who don't. Because those jobs will be replaced by AI and somebody doing it. So I wonder what's going to happen with college. And the reason why I asked that question, and what does that have to do with affirmative action? Because is the idea of all those things you talked about. Okay, allowing kids to go to school, you know, the lady that paid $600,000 or whatever it was for her daughter to go to school, and then she got exposed and, you know, daughter's embarrassed, she's embarrassed. I don't, Sex in the City, it was one of the girls. I don't know what her name is. And then, boom, we all know about it, right? And we all read about it. Imagine that kid.
We'll skip the AI conversation here because there's no point to this, because anytime a job goes away, some other job comes up because of technology. So we'll ignore this part. Let's get back to reservation and affirmative action.
So you're thinking affirmative action, the concept of capitalism doesn't apply to affirmative action all across the board.
No. I didn't say that at all. In fact, what I described is much more market-based. The thing is, the market is connecting with not just an SAT score, but an innate ability, right? That's harder to measure. And so to get that innate ability, yes, of course, SAT scores are part of that.
Who and how is going to measure innate ability? So Patrick pushes him on this question and he says psychologists are doing some good work. The psychologists are going to do good work. Agar koi bol deta hai, tab to I'm going to be very suspicious of their absolutely paid for by the pharmaceutical industry.
But the life journey it took to get those SAT scores is also important.
For sure. Because a person who's lived a harder life that they overcame, I would much rather hire that person because that person is going to be able to handle tough times and be mentally or emotionally tougher than the other person is.
That's exactly it.
Got it. So, but I don't think that's affirmative action though, right? Affirmative action isn't necessarily that. Affirmative action is more having to do, let me transition to the next one. What do you think about DEI?
See, I think of these things all the same. For me, it is about talent optimization. Okay. That's it. It is putting the best people in the best job. And now we have to figure out what...
In theory, his sentence is absolutely correct. His goal is absolutely correct. Talent optimization. वो academic या government के हाथों से नहीं होना है. Talent optimization, जिसका talent है, उसको ही करना है. उसके अलावा जो कुछ भी करने जाओगे, जिसका actually talent है, ऐसे कुछ लोगों का जिंदगी सत्यानाश हो जाएगा.
What it means to be the best person. But... you know, when it comes to DEI being a training to have me be more sensitive here on the podcast, I don't think that has much effect at all. If DEI is, you know what, we should have better technology to find talent in hidden places in America that we don't already have, that I'm all for, right? So, for example, there was a medical school that the typical way they were admitting students was that they would have 75 people they thought were interesting. They'd fly them up to campus, and they would interview all of them, and they'd pick 40 out of that 75. I'm just making up numbers here. During COVID, they couldn't do that because people weren't flying up to campus. And so what they did was just they Zoomed with 300 or 400 people. And that was the most diverse class on many dimensions, not just race and gender, that they'd ever had. Why? Because many of those people never got a shot to even get in the applicant pool. Right? And so that's what I'm talking about.
And what's the point of that diversity when the person who is not being able to cope intellectually because the professor is only talking to the high intellectual kids or high scoring kids in a very particular way, not going into every detail because someone else doesn't understand all those things, what's that kid going to do?
When I went to my third year graduate school, I went to the University of Chicago, and they were known for, like Harvard at the time would have 25 graduate students, and they'd finish 25 graduate students. Chicago was known, some people thought it was bad, I thought it was amazing, to have 50 graduate students in year one, and then they would, and the cream would rise to the top, and they would take 25 in years 2, 3, and 4, et cetera. That is the kind of thing I'm talking about, opportunity. And that's how I think about affirmative action at its best is that, DEI at its best is that. Now, the terms have all sorts of baggage, et cetera. I'm ignoring all of that. All I care about is that the kid, whoever they are, wherever they are, that has really good talent, we find a way to actually identify that talent, nurture it, so that they can flourish.
Should skin color matter when it comes down to who we choose to go into school? Should we favor certain skin colors and give them a higher score of likelihood of getting to a school than those who are white?
Not alone at all.
But should be one factor?
Well, no. What I mean by that is, what else? People are a lot more interesting than just skin color. So what else? If you're asking me the question, all else equal, should we favor should skin color matter? I don't think so. But skin colors correlate with a lot of other stuff, like income of the parents, et cetera. So it wouldn't surprise me that skin color would matter for admissions, but not on its own. It has to come up with other stuff. For example, I don't think anyone should admit Obama's kids, right? They don't need affirmative action. I don't know if they need it or not, but they shouldn't get it, right? My kids shouldn't get it. And so therefore, should race be a factor? No, not for my kids at all. But for, man in the inner city who grew up across the street from me, yeah, because that race is correlated with a lot of other things that are limiting his potential. It's all about talent, right? Like my daughters come home and ask me about race all the time now.
But is that person, just because he suffered more, is going to survive in a class with better educated students?
And they're getting older. And I tell them it's, one part of a person. But why don't you try to get to know the other parts too? And once you understand those other parts, then come back and tell me how important race actually was. And that's what I'm saying here. We need to focus on all the other stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Okay, so why though? Maybe go a little bit deeper. Sure. Why do you think that's important for us to consider that? And let's just say we have across the board golf score, 5 categories. Johnny has a better GPA than Bobby, by slight, whatever, 4.5, 4.4. SAT, 1490, 1440. Okay. Johnny on the golf score has done the same amount of community service as the other guy, a little bit more. When it comes down to math, scored on math slightly higher than the other, a little bit more. But Bobby is a Hispanic from the inner city, and Johnny's as white as they can get. You know what? Let's take Bobby. Is that fair?
Maybe.
Why is that?
Because if the obstacles he had to overcome, if you actually account for those, then maybe his score should be a perfect 1600. Meaning, what did you have to go through to get them? Right?
You can't. Okay, so let me ask this other question. Okay, we have Bobby and Johnny. Okay, Bobby is...
Imagine the idea of leaving it to AI to judge who suffered more in life. Imagine the incentive structures from that.
6'8", 260 pounds with a 41-inch vertical leap, runs the 40 in 4.4, okay? Hence, there's a guy named LeBron who I gave you the date on who he is. It was easy, okay? And he's black. On the other side, Derek is 5'11", okay, vertical leap 29 inches, runs the 40 in 4.6, okay? He busted his ass 24/7 training, and he loves the game of basketball. Should he be favored to go into the NBA over LeBron? I mean, that's unfair because that guy worked a lot harder because he had to practice his shot more. And I'm being serious with you.
No, okay, but combine scores are not great predictors of NFL success anyway. So and that's what they're doing when they interview the players, right? They're trying to figure out, what is this person's work ethic?
But LeBron is the better vote. I don't care what color LeBron is. He's the better guy to take for first round pick.
Of
but
course.
LeBron hasn't trained as hard as Derek has.
Well, in this case, actually, he did.
No, he didn't.
and he's got great work ethic.
They use a different guy. Let's take a different guy, not a LeBron. Go to a Kwame, go to a, I don't know, take Dwight Howard. Okay? Let's go to Dwight Howard.
Sure.
6'11", jumps 40 inches. Okay? Incredible body. Fast. Benches 2 plates 25 times. Okay? But partied, hooked up with girls, never came to practice, didn't do his homework. Everybody else did his homework. Everybody did his stuff for him. He's been paid for a long time. Then we have Derek. Should Derek be in the NBA instead of Dwight?
No, of course not, because it's not a factor that should overcome all.
No, because the reason why I ask this is because this causes people to like Elizabeth Warren, to say she's a Native American, and then later on they find to be able to get into a school because on the application it would benefit for me to say I'm a Native American and I'm not white to be able to get in.
What you're describing are lazy practices that I don't like either. No one should like. And
the system is set up to be lazy practices.
Well, that's the system. You're asking me what's ideal, right? And so you're asking me what my opinions are. I mean, we can sit here and say this college does it wrong, so we should throw the whole thing out. That's one
what
approach.
I'm trying to talk to a guy who's smarter than me in this area, more experienced. You're in it. I'm not in it. I'm simply questioning and wondering if is a better way, because my entire career has been in the world of business, is what markers when I'm hiring somebody is the best, instead of, oh, he's Hispanic, he's probably going to be, he's this, he's white, or let's say, but I can't do that in business.
You can't do that anywhere. No one's asking for
but
you
they're
to do
doing
that.
it in schools.
And they're wrong. I've said that like 3 times. They're wrong. But in your sports example, right, if you say, well, here are 2 people who are extremely close, one of them is in the gym every day and the other is doing...
Yeah, Meera Tripathi, he's taking the argument one step forward that, okay, maybe we don't need reservation for any days in NBA, but now let's look for reservation for the more underprivileged black person over a more privileged black person. And the only difference between me and a pro-reservation guy is that I absolutely acknowledge reservation. I acknowledge that Brahmins are at the top of every field in West Bengal. I don't really... See, when you explain or observe a problem, how we approach the problem, or whether you try to eliminate that or adjust to that is where the differences lie. So I'm saying, yes, privileges exist, but your goal should be to do a better job with your descendants. Don't screw the system, or don't screw the entire merit that is required to give us good services, products, everything. Okay. My surname is Shaha, and I'm very proud of the fact that I am Shaha. It has a very specific history, a very interesting history, that these Shahas don't have SC reservation, even though we suffered more, came from Bangladesh, selling gamchas, etc., poor as fuck. But the only Shaha you know of is also a Shaha of this category, is Riddhiman Shaha in the Indian cricket team. Okay. So, where do I draw the line here? I don't want a reservation for Shahas. I want Shahas to progress on their own. That is the only difference. Acknowledge the problem. Yes, privileges exist. What do you get from taking the job away, or taking the seat away from a person whose parents, whose ancestors also worked hard to give them that privilege? So you are basically going to take away the incentive from parents to give any sort of incentive, or hand them down any money, or so let's not even save up. Okay. Because if my son or daughter grows up to be a privileged person, the state is going to take away all the privilege anyway and give it to someone who did not grow up with privilege. What incentive does that? What incentive structure does come out of that then in another 20 years? That bad parenting becomes even more incentivized, like in the case of black communities already. Okay, that you are incentivized to become black parents because your kid will be in the end be more privileged, because he'll have to study less, know less, because he has overcome more. Okay, so absolutely insane. Why should we punish people who studied hard? Why should we punish people who did more for their parents? Kya ajeeb argument hai ye?
One of the things you described, then yeah, if they're extremely close, if their verticals were a millimeter off, then I'm going to go with the person who's in the gym because I think they're going to have a longer career. But
Meghna Shah is a legend, but he was not Bangal Shah. He was from here only.
It's not like any of these factors outweigh all the other ones, right?
The only difference is so help me understand. How do you judge that? Okay? How do you judge capacity? How do you judge
PBD is not good. He's slightly better than Ranveer. I challenge any podcast host in entire India to ever win a debate with Patrick Bet-David.
I do an event once a year called the Vault Conference. We'll have 10,000 people at the event this year in Palm Beach. And one of the things I talk about is the underachiever, achiever, overachiever. Nothing new. Everybody's heard about the underachiever, achiever, overachiever. Yeah. But to me, the way I explain it with the capacity of the individual. Yeah. Not necessarily, you may have more capacity than me, and I may be an overachiever, and you may end up being an underachiever, and you can still kick my ass.
Exactly.
I don't know if that made sense. Yeah, you could still beat me as an underachiever, so we can't measure that. We don't have the technology for that.
I think that we don't measure it well. Right?
There is no way to measure it, though.
I think the psychologists are trying to get really good at trying to understand stuff like grit, resilience, and these other factors that are really important beyond the more traditional measures like education or test scores. For example, let me give you an example. I think hopefully this will help. One of the things I've been working on is trying to understand what actually predicts economic mobility. It's the thing I care probably the most about, right?
What predicts economic mobility? The government not fucking you with taxes.
And what we did was something really, really simple. We went out and we found a couple thousand people, all of which who had been born into poverty. Let's imagine 30% got out and 70% didn't. We spent hours and hours with all of these people trying to understand their lives, et cetera, so we could predict Why is it that some people got out and other people didn't? What we found was that education was the number one predictor. Not too much of a surprise. There's been a lot to work on that. But what we found was like 5 out of the next 7 were all psychological. Locus of control, which we talked about earlier. Do you internalize or do you externalize things that happen in life?
Yeah.
Grit, resilience, etc.
Yeah.
And so it's not perfect at all. I agree with you. It's really hard to measure capacity. But why aren't we? But the amount of effort that we're putting into trying to understand that, which all of us think is extraordinarily important, relative to trying to figure out exactly which threshold for SATs, is way off. The future of talent optimization has to be in thinking through those types of skills. And
See, but the problem is that SATs are for, therefore actually there's more incentive for people to push for fields that don't require only your academic qualifications. And business, getting into jobs with your hands. If you are in academia, the only thing you are going to be based on is your academic credentials. It does not have to be the case for every profession. Maybe that company particularly can do it in another way, but the government doesn't have to go around and tell them. That's all I'm saying.
Those types of capacities.
Okay, but to me, I'm with you. So if I'm running a school and a person ends up coming up with a study that shows,
Yeah, what M. Shastri and Abhay are discussing here is very interesting. Actually, I agree with both of them. In general, American podcasts are better because they have such a history of critical thinking, etc., reading different kinds of views, knowing things like steel manning, etc. So that's kind of forgotten in a post-colonial society like India, where you don't have the money to even survive. You're living in a licensed Raj until 1991. So how are you going to learn how to debate, etc.? The only people who know how to debate, who learn to debate in school, are people like J. Sai Deepak, Mahua Moitra, etc. So these are obviously benefits of a prosperous country. But what M. Shastri is pointing out is, of course, very, very true that in terms of geopolitics discussions, India's podcasts are by far will at least give you better information than any American podcast. Americans are clueless about geopolitics, man. Hilarious. Everything else I would agree with Abhay. Ash Ketchum is saying a problem is that other parameters are not empirical in nature. Yeah.
Cops are not worse on blacks than they are on whites. And then you bring that study to me and I respond back to you that this is bullshit. And you say, wow, you're a pretty fast reader. How'd you read it? I didn't have to read it. I just saw that it's 150 pages. You said, how many pages was it? I don't know how many. This reminds me of what happened 400 years ago. So let me get this straight. So now you're using affirmative action against me because you felt sorry for me? I go there, me. I'm not saying you. Maybe you didn't go there, but I went there for myself. I've never liked that. I never liked, hey, we want to drop off some turkey for you guys on Thanksgiving because you guys are poor. I didn't like that. It bothered me. Stephen A. said something about his mother where he said, when my mom was on welfare for a couple months, she was disgusted by it. She couldn't wait to get off of it. She couldn't wait to get off of it, right? There's a lot of people that are using the system.
That is Joe Rogan's story as well. Joe Rogan was raised by a single mom getting food by having those food coupons basically, okay, for free from the government. But the problem is there are only so many Stephen A. Smiths and Joe Rogans. The entire society in general gets an incentive to not move beyond freebies and welfare.
System to get on it.
Of course.
So all I'm saying
What do you think is going to happen on the day when Lokhir Bhandar is actually going to be stopped? People shape their lives, their daily habits based on the amount of money they have in their hands. So if you give them 1,200 rupees now, how are you ever going to stop it? What you are basically then have to risk not winning some votes someday in the near future or in the far future maybe that, see, I have done so many great economic things. Have you heard of this person called Thomas Sowell? He would tell you how great my policies were. See, there's so much prosperity in the society now. Now I'm going to stop your 1,200 rupees that was coming to you for all these years. What's that conversation going to be like?
If you create the guidelines for me to be accepted based on low standards, no problem. I'll take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And that'll be a guideline that I'll be looking for no matter where I go and work, at a job, in corporate world, no matter what it is. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I understand the incentives, but nowhere in what I said I talked about low standards.
Now Patrick David basically gives up. We are also nearing the end of this live stream. Ash Ketchum is saying Rosian justice and theory of positive discrimination got screwed up with time progressing in our tribalistic representative vote bank politics in India. It was bound to happen. The system was set up to incentivize vote bank politics. It was incentivized. It was set up to incentivize positive discrimination. Positive discrimination is a bad thing. Indian podcasts are less dogmatic compared to American ones. We don't care about the person's ideology. Our geopolitics and public policy podcasts are way more diverse. But I think only in the right-wing podcast space, not everywhere. The realist global politics discussions you'll get on right-wing podcasts only.
None.
Now this person is saying that I did not talk about low capabilities.
I'll move my flight back. We can sit all day.
Let me tell you.
Here all day,
so
bro.
if we go with you.
So that's what I'm saying. That's why you have to measure both. You don't become great. Like I study these guys. Muhammad Ali. I teach a class on black geniuses. I study these guys, and all of them have the and. They have both. So that's why the whole debate, and I think it's fun to have here and stuff. But I do worry that people in the world who are making these decisions are sitting here treating it like or. It's got to be and you got to be looking at everything. And you're right. Universities are doing it in a lazy way. The universities don't have the data sets. They don't actually know what the grit and resilience of the applicants are. That's the problem. And so they have to rely on these silly metrics that they're using.
The problem is, if you are going to judge a person based on his grit and merit, grit or capacity for overcoming hardship, how do you know that the person who already has the higher test score came from a maybe privileged family? Even that person has actually that capability of grit and overcoming problems. How do you know he doesn't have that? Just because he came from a privileged family, it means that he definitely doesn't have grit or a capability to overcome hardships. What kind of an assumption is that? This is where we end this discussion, because it's now going to go around in circles. Americans and geopolitics cannot go well with each other. Meera Tripathi's question is the last one I'll take now and then go away. She's saying, what do you think about Bajrang Dal? I think they have they have served a purpose in some points. They have done useless things like beating people up on Valentine's Day. There were so many Hindus to protect from so many patarbazes, and you decided to go and beat up Hindu couples who are going to marry and give birth to Hindu kids. What kind of dumbassery is that? But the main problem is that, of course, we must live in a society where there is no need of a Bajrang Dal. More importantly, would you or would anyone in their right minds ever tell any of their relatives to go join Bajrang Dal? If you are talking about an organization where you would never join in a million lives, and you wouldn't ask your son, daughter, brother to join that organization, then it means that you inherently believe that organization should not exist. Only thing you are hoping for is that a lower middle class person joins that organization, gets beaten up on the streets, or has 1,000 FIRs in his name, or rots in the prison. Okay, guys, bye. I'm coming back at 12 for the membership live streams to discuss the Savarkar book by